Hey guys, it's Sarah from MasterChef here, and I've got an awesome recipe for you today. It's going to be a pork mince meatball with pearl barley soup. So the greatest thing about Australian pork mince is that it's so delicious and it's so versatile. It adds a beautiful savouriness to your dishes. So we're going to start with about 250 grams of pearl barley. So that feeds about 3 to 4 hungry people. And we're just going to add it to a pot here. Let's just get this on. And while that's on, I'm just going to top it up with about a litre of stock. Remember, this is going to be a soup, so you do want a little bit of liquid in there. Just going to add some stock to the pearl barley. And we're just going to let that cook for about 25 to 30 minutes. All right, so while that's cooking, I want to add some things that'll give it some flavour. So I'm going to add in some bay leaves. And then I'm actually going to grate a few cloves of garlic. And this is a really easy way to add garlic flavour to your actual recipes. Just grate it, don't bother chopping. So just grate that in. Yeah. Add some of that. Add one more. So don't be afraid of just adding the cloves in too. Give that a stir. And we're actually going to season the stock as well. So let's just season that stock generously with some salt. All right, just a little bit of salt in there. And then a little pinch of pepper. And then what I'm going to do is actually add some of this onion. So it's about 1 small to medium-sized onion. And all we're going to do is just slice it finely. So let's just cut downwards and let's just chop. That's one half. And we'll do the same on this side. All right, so just add that straight into the pot. And that's actually going to cook down and soften and actually kind of melt into that stock, which is going to add beautiful flavour. All right, now let's whack a lid on that. While that's actually cooking, all I'm going to do now is work on the pork meatballs. And this is great. This is beautiful Australian pork mince. And it's so beautiful. It's so flavorful. So to the actual pork mince, I'm going to add some fresh thyme. And thyme works so beautifully with pork. So let's just pick off some of those leaves. Little thyme tips straight into there. Now this is about 400 to 500 grams of pork mince, and it'll be a very generous serve for 4 people. Look, if you don't want to use all the meatballs, just simply make the meatballs and stick them in the freezer. They'll keep for about a week. And then I'm going to season the pork mince quite generously. You want to get as much flavour in there as possible. So let's get some salt in there and a really generous pinch of pepper. That's going to work really well with the soup. Okay. So now, the only way to do this is get your hands a little bit dirty, get it in there. So we're just going to mix up this pork mince with those beautiful herbs and spices. And what you want to do is make sure you're compacting the mince down. So what that'll form is actually a really nice textured meatball. All right, so once we have this all mixed up nicely, all you want to do is take a little bit of that pork mince, about the size of a ping pong ball, maybe a little bit smaller, and just give it a good roll between your hands. Make sure the mince is compact because you want the meatballs to hold together. So you're looking for something about that size. All right, so all we're going to do is just continue with this until all the mince has been used up. Remember, if you're going to freeze this, make sure that the pork meatballs don't actually touch each other. It's better if they're completely separated. Great, we've rolled all our meatballs, and now what we're going to do is brown them off in a fry pan just to get some caramelization and flavour. All right, so in a fry pan on medium-high heat, all we're going to do is add a little bit of oil. And let's wait till that oil actually heats up before we start putting the meat in. It's really important that the pan is actually hot, otherwise you're not going to get that beautiful browning on the meatballs. All right. So while we're waiting for that, this soup is smelling delicious already. It's so, so good. All right, so let's just give that a little stir. Great, so to the soup, we're actually gonna add some carrots and celery. I've got about 2 stalks of celery and 2 whole carrots, and all I've done is just slice them into about 1/2 centimeter in width. So let's go ahead and add the celery. It's gonna add a beautiful flavor. All right. Great, so just adding the carrots now. Just stir that. Put the lid back on. All right, so while the celery and carrots are softening, your oil should have heated up by now. And it's really important that it's warm. Okay, so let's get these meatballs straight into the pan. That's the sound you want to hear. You want to hear actual cooking, actual sizzling. That's how you know it's going to get brown. Just roll the oil around the pan a little bit so it's touching each meatball. Don't fiddle around with the meatballs too much. You want to just let it form a nice crust so that they won't actually stick to the pan. So just let's leave that for a few minutes. Keep an eye on that. And while that's happening, all we now need to do is chop the parsley and make sure we have some spinach ready for the soup. So here I've got some flat leaf parsley. And this adds a beautiful, fresh, vibrant flavor to your soup. So all I'm going to do is just roughly chop it. I want some size to the parsley so that you know what you're eating, and it just adds a wonderful flavor. So just run your knife roughly through the parsley. All right. And let's set that aside for the soup. Give the soup another stir. It smells so good. All right, so now let's kind of roll the meatballs around a little bit. Let's just flip them onto the other side. See how they're forming that beautiful golden crust? That's exactly what we want. That's where all that flavor is. Now look, I've chosen to use meatballs today, but really, you know, Australian pork mince, it's so good. You could just fry it straight off in a pan and get like little bits and chunks and add that to the soup. That's also incredible. Meatballs are just a little bit more fun. So let's just make sure that the meatballs are browned well on all sides. Leave that for another couple minutes. This is looking absolutely beautiful. I love that golden color. You know, the great thing about this soup is that it's still quite light. It's quite a refreshing soup, but at the same time it's very warming. It's perfect for winter, it's perfect for a snack, perfect for the weekend. Now, a lot of people are afraid of cooking something like a meatball. They end up kind of cutting into the meat to see if it's cooked all the way through. Let's not worry about that. This is easy cooking. All we want to make sure is we've got a beautiful golden crust on the outside. We're going to add that to the soup, and it's just going to cook the meatball all the way through. This is beautiful, simple cooking. So these meatballs are looking great. Oh, yes. So I'm just making sure any kind of not brown surfaces do get contact with the pan, so then it's, you know, quite evenly caramelized. Now, if you do see some of the oil darkening around the outside, or the meatballs going a little bit dark like this one has, no problem. It adds to the flavor, but just turn the heat on the pan down slightly and continue cooking until you get that beautiful, even golden crust. All right, so I'm just going to turn the heat off on the meatballs. Give that a little nice roll around. Make sure they're all loosened from the pan. Great. I'll give my soup a little stir. That bay leaf in here just, oh, it just livens it up so much. It's beautiful flavor. These beautiful Australian pork meatballs don't just have to be used in this soup recipe. They're so versatile. You can add them through a beautiful pasta sauce, or even just serve them as is with a beautiful dipping sauce. A tomato relish, some mustard, oh, incredible. The heat's off on those meatballs. I'm just going to transfer them to a plate. Our beautiful Australian pork meatballs have been cooked, they're beautifully browned, and our pearl barley has been kind of stewing away, simmering for about 25 to 30 minutes. So let's give the soup a quick stir, and it's looking gorgeous at the moment. Absolutely gorgeous. Those carrots and celery pieces are wonderfully tender, and they're just going to go so well with that pork meatball. So this is the kind of tenderness we're looking for. The pearl barley is just softened. It's still got a bit of texture to it. It's still got a bit of bite, but it's not hard and crunchy. It looks great. So once that's done, we can actually add in the pork meatballs now. Give that a really good stir to combine everything really nicely. The colors in this are just wonderful. So our soup with the meatballs has been simmering away for another few minutes, about 5 to 10 minutes, just so that the meatballs have cooked all the way through. Give it a good stir. And you can see that because we've rolled the meatballs quite compactly, it's not falling apart. It's still got that body to it, which is really, really nice. So the meatballs have had a chance to cook all the way through for about 5 to 10 minutes. Oh, that smell is just, oh, it blows me away. So let's add some flavor into this. I'm gonna add a cheeky half glass of white wine. That just kind of boldens that flavor a little bit. All right, let's give that a stir. Beautiful. Okay, now let's turn off the heat on this pot. So while the heat's off and the simmering has kind of died down, in that residual heat, I'm gonna add the spinach. Now you can use anything. You could use, spinach or kale. You could use a bit of rocket even. That adds a nice kind of bitter note. And you can already start seeing how this spinach just wilts down a little bit. That's beautiful. You kind of want to keep that vibrant green color. So once the spinach has started wilting down, let's add in this fresh parsley. Oh, that's so bright. That smell, gosh. Oh, this is making me so hungry. Now make sure you taste and adjust the seasoning as you want. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt in, just to finish it off. Give that one more good stir. And we're ready to serve. Oh, look at those colors. Beautiful. Get some meatballs, the most important part of this dish. There we go. One more. And all we're gonna do is finish with a little bit of oil, just a light drizzle. There you go. And there you have it, my Australian pork meatball with pearl barley soup.